The Regional School Committee to order 9:15 p.m. Notice has been posted. Pursuant to open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting and may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions may be made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Roll call of members present. Ms. Andrews.
I'm here.
Mrs. Gagliardi.
I'm here.
Mr. Goff.
Present.
Ms. Machado.
Here.
Mr. Pierce.
Here.
Ms. Vincent is absent, and I'm here as well. Ms. Hester is chair here. We do the Pledge of Allegiance again? The next regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. here in the Somerset Berkeley Regional High School Library. First up, we have student teaching and learning. Did not mention that Mr. Taro, Director of Business and Finance, Mr. Taro, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Schoonover are also here, along with Robin Picaro, our recording secretary. First item up is student learning. Student teaching and learning, sorry. So September, I'd like to announce the September Raider Visionaries of the month. Carissa Alvin, Academic and Independent. Hannah Aruda, Empathy. Annis Hana, Respect. Andrew Perot, Academic. Jonathan Holman, Digital Citizen. Reese Swanson, Resilient. Colby Williamson, Resilient. Fiona Young, Yang, Independent. Mrs. Schoonover, could you tell us a little bit about the
Sure. So each department is still, as they've done in the past, recognizing a student each month. But in their write-ups that you're used to seeing, the focus is now on one of the 6 aspects of the vision of the graduate. So Carissa Alvin, she was identified by 2 different departments this month, one for her academics and one for some display of independence. So as you read the back of information, you'll see a little bit more about how these students are demonstrating those characteristics of the vision of the graduate.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on student teaching? No, okay. Moving on to new business, other post-employment benefits OPEB subcommittee update.
So the OPEB subcommittee met recently, and one of our next steps is to build up the rest of that trust by adding a representative of the retirees and a representative from the current employee groups. So the next step is we want to write a letter. I need to do that. That will be addressed to the heads of the different unions, asking that they submit, and they have to work out amongst themselves who would be their representative, much as they do for the insurance trust, to serve on that OPEB committee, with the goal of perhaps at the start of the year meeting as a full trust committee and looking at the policy, and as well trying to consider going out to bid or considering other investment groups to look at our finances. I think that's everything I'm talking about. Yep.
Okay, any questions on that? Hearing none, moving on unfinished business, the winter retreat. I think you sent out dates.
Yep, we have, the date is confirmed for January 29th. I don't have any updates on the agenda. We'll be working on that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have policies for second readings. We have a list of things that carry over. So does anyone have any questions, comments, or recommendations on the policies as distributed? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve these policies noted on the agenda, which will become part of the meeting minutes on second reading.
Come on. Second.
A motion by Mr. Pierce, second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Policies for the first reading.
So if I may, we have two policies in our policy manual. One's titled AIDS Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome Resolution, and the other is relates to the school attendance policy. Both of these policies have been removed from the Mass Association of School Committees model policy manual. We reviewed them. The feeling of the policy subcommittee is that these were policies were designed to address a particular issue that arose a couple of decades ago, that it's been addressed, and the protections that are provided in this policy are covered by other policies which we have in place. So we're recommending that we simply adopt the approach that's recommended by the Mass Association of School Committees and remove these policies from our policy manual.
So if we're going to remove these from the policy manual, can we waive the second reading and do it all in one shot?
Well, I don't know if there's any reason to vary the policy. Removing them is a significant step as well as modifying existing policies. That's up to the committee.
Okay. Well, I'd like to entertain a motion to waive the second reading of policies JLCCA and JLCCA-E and move forward with removing them from the policy manual.
So moved. Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion?
I have a couple of discussion because I thought this was the first reading, but I understand that we're removing it, and it's not that I don't support it. I just didn't do the research. I was going to ask if the subcommittee had, and I understand what Mr. Pierce said, it's addressed in other policies that obviously makes this policy no longer needed. Do you know which policies which policies that I can just refer to before? Yeah, I just want to I understand, I'm sure Mask did the job, it was just that I was just wondering, I didn't look at it. That was my question today.
Well, these policies were designed in a situation where there was a question about students being able to attend school who had this particular issue in their lives, and it was a rather controversial issue at the time. As a matter of fact, Mr. Gore circulated a poignant obituary recently, and it was actually an issue that is very close to the hearts of a lot of people in this area, and particularly in Swansea. But it is not, to the best of my knowledge, and perhaps Mr. Schoonover can comment on this because he was present on our policy subcommittee meeting, but it is not an issue that arises at the present time. There's no question that students are accommodated in being able to attend school, and this just hasn't been an issue. So there are policies with regard to accommodations, with respect to providing for their health needs. So just various policies.
Okay, can I actually comment, because you brought it up, about Jay Boyle? I'm not sure, some people might know who he was, but Mrs. Gagliardi is looking at me, I think she does know who Mr. Boyle was. His son, Mark, contracted HIV through a blood transfusion back in the 80s, and it was I'd say a groundbreaking situation. There was, right before that, a situation in Indiana where there was controversy that the young boy who was in a similar situation should be attending school with his comrades. And over here in our area, Mark was taken with open arms. There's a book written by Jay. I actually have a copy of it if anybody wants to read it. It's tough to come by these days, but it's a great story. Mark unfortunately did pass away shortly after he went back to school. But Jay was a great guy, big member of the Swansea community. As Mr. Pierce said, pretty close, a lot of people in this area are pretty close with him. And my condolences go out to the family, really good group of people. Thank you.
Not only that, but actually the superintendent of schools in Swansea took a rather courageous stance at the time and insisted that Mark be allowed to attend school. And,
Absolutely.
I believe he was the first, Mark was the first
He was.
student nationwide who was allowed to enter school while having AIDS. And Mr. Machado, to answer your question, policy JLCC is communicable diseases. I think that's the one that Mr. Pierce is referring to, that is more encompassing of any
Yeah.
communicable disease rather than specifying just on AIDS.
I'm actually reading it right now.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Hearing none, thank you. Next up, we have other matters and information, insurance trust update.
Yes, I circulated some information from the last couple of insurance trust meetings. It was sent out only today, so it should be available to everyone in the packet, and I suggest we defer this. And there were some high points that I wanted to mention, but I can do that at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Somerset Berkeley K updates?
I don't have any.
No updates, okay. All right, thank you. Topics not anticipated by the chair 8 hours in advance of the meeting, I have none. Action.
just because this actually came to us at the last meeting, and it's within the 48 hours, I was just wondering, we talked about the testing, and I know Mr. Pierce shared his thought. I just, if it's not a school committee decision, which is fine, as long as it's not mandatory, and if people want to take that test to get kids back into school, because obviously this is where we want children to be. I highly recommend it that, families and children that want to, I think at the high school we probably, well, no, most students are under 18, they probably still need parent approval, but I think it's a no-brainer. I just think keeping kids in school, I don't see any downside in it. So if you're looking for any guidance from us, or at least I can tell you I would support something like that.
So, I did, if you recall, I mentioned this at our September meeting for the Somerset School Committee, and at that meeting, I think there was a majority of the committee who felt the opposite of what you just expressed at that time. There was no formal vote, and Mr. Gaudet actually asked for some additional information, which we'll be doing shortly, providing shortly. There were, it's nice to hear from Ms. Vincent that it's worked well in Berkeley. It was not going very well at the very beginning of the school year in many school districts, between not having the supplies, not having the training, not having the appropriate staff to actually handle all of this. I think many of the districts have kind of worked out those kinks, so now it might be a good time to explore it and jump in at this point. And we did have, we know in Somerset and Somerset Berkeley, we started out right away with having a lot of positive cases that we were simply not expecting that quickly. It tailed off quite quickly and was only reporting 1 or 2 cases per week, if that, for about a month straight. And just in the last week or so, we started to see, as Mr. Pierce mentioned at North Elementary, a few more cases. And we have seen them more recently. It's been more impactful at the elementary level than it has anywhere else. We've had more cases with our younger students than we have with our middle school and high school, but they're also not vaccinated, which might be one of the contributing factors. But I will bring that information back to the committee if that's what you would like, or at our next meeting.
Yeah, it'd be good to have on the anything else?
You know, we just brought it up with Mr. Hoyle, and I don't know if I can do this, and you guys can cut me off if you want, but I'd like to see us send a letter to the family as a committee, just thanking the Hoyle family for their role in the history of advocating for rights of patients and diseases in general. I don't know if we can do that, if that's something that, if I'm wrong, it's fine. I know I'm fairly new to you, but they did have a big role in, they are our neighbors over in Swansea.
We can send a letter. I think we have, don't we have, Mr. Spinella, like stationery
We do.
or cards? So we can send that on behalf of
That would, I'd appreciate that, thank you.
Action items for future meetings. I had from tonight, we had looking at enrollments over the next 5 years. Is that?
Just whatever projections, although I don't think we might have
Oh,
those
that's, we're
in
not
the
going to see
December
that for a
meeting.
little while.
That might
That's
be
just
more
gonna
of a
be-
January.
Okay. Okay. Anything else that people would like to identify for future meetings?
I think we probably have an update on the retreat plans and potentially on the I don't know.
I'd like to report on some of the things that I learned at the school committee conference. There were a couple of, well, there were actually several presentations that I was very impressed with and brought back some tidbits of information. Just an example, you know, we voted in favor of all electric school buses, and I attended a program on transportation and I was sitting and thinking, well, why don't we ask Fisher to buy a couple of electric school buses just to kind of work their way in. So I asked the question, what's the difference in cost between a regular gas-powered school bus and an electric school bus? I was told that the difference in cost is $300,000 per bus. So we voted to go all electric on school buses, but unless President Biden comes up with the money, I don't know how soon that's going to happen. Now, everybody says they're going to get cheaper and cheaper as time goes by, and there are some cost savings that are involved in using electric buses. They're simpler, so they're not as prone to repair, and they don't have any gas expense, but that initial capital cost is pretty big.
I don't think you were there on Saturday, but that was a pretty heated discussion
Was it?
when they were voting. Mr. Fenstermaker had to take off, so I was activated as delegate, and it went on quite a bit of time. I eventually moved the question. Some of the people that wanted to continue discussing it, I got quite some dirty looks walking outside, even though I think they got moved like 90 to 10 or something. But there were some people that wanted to continue advocating, and honestly, I don't even understand why people were so upset about it, because people were authorized by the school committees. They had to vote one way or another, so I didn't understand why they had to keep speaking to the matter.
Welcome to the delegate assembly.
Thanks.
Mr. Fenstermaker, I don't know if this is an answer, but this is something that we can put in a future meeting, but, so I want to, if you don't mind, I'll ask the superintendent a question. A couple of meetings ago, maybe like a few meetings, I believe you mentioned there may be a survey that was going out regarding bus uses, who needs it. I was wondering if you ever got any, or if there, I know you did it in the K-8, I believe you said, but I believe you said that maybe in this high school you were doing it, or it never was. Okay, no, thank you.
What was it? Oh,
You have to be careful about our regional transportation reimbursement.
Yes.
I have a question, if someone could refresh my memory. Just has the issue of SROs and body cameras, has that been referred to the policy subcommittee?
It has, and we discussed it at our meeting, and we have a very broad security policy, which gives the superintendent a great deal of discretion, and we felt that the existing policy really gave the superintendent the authority to deal with the situation, and that we really didn't need to make any significant or even actually any change in that policy, I believe. I don't, so
That's correct.
that was the way we addressed it. And we can put that on the agenda for the next meeting if you want to just have us present the security policy.
I guess
If you like, or we could just circulate it to the committee, and the committee can look at it, and then if there's any questions or issues, the policy subcommittee could look at it further. But it's a very broad policy, and it gives the superintendent a great deal of discretion, so.
I guess then maybe what I'd be curious about at the appropriate time, and it might be too soon, would be to get an update from the superintendent about sort of where you stand in terms of conversations with the police department about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. We had meeting minutes from the open session, executive session of October 13, 2021. Any questions on the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes of both the open session and the executive session.
second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Is there any public input? Hearing none. We'll now be going into executive session with no open session to follow. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Litigation, LH Realty, asbestos emanated material and solid waste removal from former Somerset High School. And as I mentioned, the committee will not return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Do you have any
Actually,
roll call?
we have that roll call.
All right, so motion adjourned from open session to go into executive session by roll call vote. Mr. Machado.
Aye.
Mr. Goff.
Aye.
Mr. Pierce.
Aye.
Mr. Gagliardi.
Aye.
Ms. Andrews.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.